right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. This Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting, Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Zamora.
Here.
Harmon.
Here.
Boutros.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Whitbeck.
Here.
All right, we have a full commission. Moving on to the agenda, any conflict of interest declarations from any of the commissioners?
No.
Seeing none, moving on. No special presentation, so that moves us to the consent calendar. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Commissions such as annexation, rezone, classification, or approval of a subdivision preliminary plat. The public hearing procedures as required by Idaho Code are as follows. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed up to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium and state your name and address, which will be included into the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered. This is followed by public testimony beginning with the applicant or the applicant's representative, who will present a summary of the request for no more than 10 minutes. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by those in a neutral position, and finally those in opposition to the request. All public testimony will be limited to 5 minutes or less. Finally, the applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide a rebuttal testimony. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public testimony portion of the public hearing will be closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. So with that, there's no new business, so that takes us, there's no old business. That takes us to new business, action item 1. So open to this public hearing, case number SUB 24-29, DEV 24-3. With that, staff report, please.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Alex Jones, planner at 205 South 6th Avenue. Today before you is the Tuscan Ridge application, preliminary plat and development agreement modification. And just to get started, you all should have received a updated staff report compared to the one that was sent out. Those updates were just to fix some errors in the staff report, those being under 12 for site features. I previously had there was mature trees on the site. There were not. On under 19 staff review and analysis, there was a blurb in there for multifamily. That was not part. That was just left over from the template. So that was removed. There are no multifamily for this. And another correction was under the traffic impact study. There was just a blurb of text in there from the template as well. That was removed. The traffic impact study generations and all that were still correct. There was just some language for a previous subdivision that was not part of this. And with that, that were the majority of the changes. Just wanted to make sure that was on record. And another thing was that this does say Nampa School District was part of this, and in the PAM it does not show that they were notified, but they were by staff at a later time due to finding out that this was not in Valley View or Caldwell School District. And with that, I will begin my presentation. All right, so the subject site location, the project location is a 78.46 acre parcel located on the southeast corner of Orchard Avenue and Indiana Avenue. For conditions surrounding the subject site, the site is currently vacant / farmland. To the north is single family homes along with some county homes. The south is farmland and county single family homes. East is farmland and the west is farmland and farmhouses. For the applicant request, the applicant is requesting for a preliminary plat for Tuscan Ridge subdivision. I will go into more detail on the subdivision application, and a development agreement modification to remove this parcel from the previous Sienna Hills development agreement. For background and history of the subject site was annexed in the city of Caldwell in 2006 under the Sienna Hills subdivision development. The site has an existing development agreement that will need to be modified to take the parcel out of the Sienna Hills development. The area south of Orchard Avenue was supposed to be future phases of Sienna Hills that were not developed. Their plats have expired, and this is why we have the current Tuscan Ridge development. Zoning and land use analysis, the site is zoned R1 low density residential, along with R1 to the north. The south is agricultural county, east agricultural county, and west is rural residential. For comprehensive plan analysis, the comprehensive plan designation for this site is low density residential, along with low density and residential estates to the north, residential estates to the east, and west and south. For development project analysis, the applications for a preliminary plat for Tuscan Ridge subdivision in an R1 low-density residential zone consisting of 212 single-family lots, 38 common lots on 78.46 acres with a density of 2.7 units per acre. This project will be completed in 5 phases. Public hearing notifications, we did receive comments, our staff received comments from Highway District Number 4. No opposition stated. They requested specific conditions which will be appeased with the engineering memo. Things like fees for in lieu and construction, those things that are in our general engineering report. ITD submitted comments saying no concerns, and we did not receive any public notifications. For site-specific conditions or concerns, there is a development agreement from, I believe, 2006 that will need to be modified, just removing the legal boundary of this parcel from it. The development agreement just has general conditions that were meant for Sienna Hills that don't match this development. Things like road improvements, which will be done with this new development. It will be with new numbers, better landscape buffers, more modern code. And staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the request, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the FCOs. And I stand for questions.
Thank you. We will move to the applicant, and then we'll ask questions after the applicant. Becky is Gary. I say it every time incorrectly. I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, good evening. I'm excited to introduce. Does that screen work too? Sorry.
And then just name and address to the record, please.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Becky Ozagiri, 1144 South Silverstone Way, Meridian, Idaho 83642. I'm excited to introduce Tuscan Ridge subdivision, a preliminary plat with a development agreement modification. The project is located on the southeast corner of Orchard in Indiana, with Lake Lowell being a half-mile west of the site. The property is surrounded by R1 single-family to the north and county residents to the east, south, and west. The Forest Canal runs north-south through the middle of the property. A City of Caldwell well lot is located in the northwest area of the property. There are also 2 enclaved parcels on the west side of the property fronting Indiana. We plan to reroute the Forest Canal to tie into the Deer Flat Canal just north of the property. The municipal well parcel located in the northwest area of the property will be given full access. The out parcels have agreed to abandon their well and connect to city water. In addition, the developer has agreed to provide a sewer stub to their property. The property is in the City of Caldwell with the zoning designation of R1 with an existing development agreement. We are not requesting a zone change and will fully comply with the City of Caldwell's R1 requirements. We are requesting that the existing development agreement be amended to match the proposed project. The comprehensive plan and future land use map designates this area as low-density residential. The Tuscan Ridge subdivision, with a gross density of 2.7 dwelling units per acre, falls within the allowed maximum of 3 units per acre. Additionally, this development aligns and supports many of the goals set forth in the comprehensive plan, fully complying with its current guidelines. Tuscan Ridge subdivision has been designed as a low-density residential subdivision with a zoning designation of R1 and a gross residential density of 2.7 dwelling units per acre. The 78.5 acre development will include 212 single-family lots, 35 common lots with a total of 16.27 acres or 20% open space, with 8.71 acres or 11.1% qualified open space. The minimum lot size is 7,929 square feet with an average lot size of 8,848 square feet and a maximum lot size of 15,563 square feet. The Tuscan Ridge subdivision will be developed in 5 phases, each in full compliance with the R1 development requirements outlined in the City of Caldwell's comprehensive plan and city code. Here are the elevations for Tuscan Ridge subdivision. We are proposing 1- and 2-story homes. These homes have multiple material types, porches, pop-outs, providing visual interest in the exteriors of each homes. And these are the interiors that we're proposing. The Tuscan Ridge subdivision will offer 6.27 acres of open space, representing 20% of the total area, with 9.21 acres, or 11.7%, designated as qualifying open space. That is more than double the requirement of the R1. We are also providing a network of major and micro pathways that will weave through the subdivision, ensuring strong connectivity throughout. Along with nearly a mile of pathways and generous amounts of open space, the development will feature basketball and pickleball courts at its center. Instead of being tucked away, the central amenity will be highlighted along the main collector roads, serving as a prominent feature as people drive into the community. This development proposes to construct 17 new local roads with ingress-egress on both Orchard and Indiana. All newly built local streets will include curb, gutter, and a 5-foot attached sidewalk. Orchard Road will be widened to include a minimum 20-foot landscape buffer, 8.5-foot parkway, a 7-foot attached sidewalk, and 56.5 roadway width. We will also construct a westbound left turn lane on Orchard Ave at the intersection of South Indiana. We will then construct a southbound left turn lane at the intersection of South Indiana and the proposed Tuscan Ridge Drive. In addition, we will construct a westbound right turn lane on Smith Ave at the intersection of Indiana Avenue. Indiana Avenue improvements include a 20-foot landscape buffer, a 5-foot parkway strip, and a 7-foot attached sidewalk. We will also construct a northbound right turn lane on South Indiana Ave at the intersection of Orchard Ave. The newly constructed half section of Smith Avenue will have a 20-foot landscape buffer, a 5-foot parkway strip, a 7-foot attached sidewalk, and a 26-foot roadway width to back a curb. The roadways will be built to the standards set forth by the City of Caldwell and the City of Caldwell Fire Department. The development will connect to an existing 12-inch water main on Indiana and Orchard Avenue, an additional connection to the 12-inch main line between the well location and Orchard Ave. It will also connect to a sewer manhole located approximately 1,200 feet east of Indiana and Orchard. A new pressure irrigation pump off Orchard Ave will be supplied by the Forest Canal and supplemented groundwater well. Stormwater management will include multiple retention facilities throughout the site, each with grass bottom surfaces. So as you can see, we've been thoughtful with our design and made it a point to work with the neighbors and staff to develop a project that would work for the community. We thank you so much for your time and hope we can make this project a part of the Caldwell community. I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Boutros?
I have a couple of minor questions for staff. In the lot area minimum, going from the 8,000 square feet to 7,929, that part of the city code, which I appreciate being repeated in the package, says that it's part of a final plat, but this is marked preliminary plat. Does that make a difference at all? Or is this going to carry over intact to the final plat?
Good evening, Morgan Bisa, Planning and Zoning. That's a great question. And I think that the answer is, as long as they don't exceed that when it comes back for final plat, it would be within the allotment by code.
So staff will be looking to make sure that nothing is smaller than 7,929?
Absolutely, because it's not a PUD.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There was also a place in the engineering report where they were given options on traffic mitigation. Is this the right time to discuss what option they're choosing, or do they have a window where they can still do that?
Thank you, Commission, Mr. Boutros. Generally speaking, I have not talked to the developers at this point. If there's a location identified by the city, then we would certainly propose that before they go into design of their site. If there is not a location, the developer has the opportunity to contribute those funds in lieu of construction. And oftentimes when the city doesn't have a specific project already in the works or needed, as in conjunction with this development, then the funds would be contributed in lieu of construction.
So it does sound like there's still time.
Yeah, there's certainly still time, and especially, I apologize, I'm not extremely familiar with this project, but especially before this goes to council, we could certainly have that all figured out.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Other questions? I have just a wondering, and I know it wasn't your project, but what was the dwelling, do you know what the dwelling units per acre for this Sienna Hills portion that was in this specific area?
For the 2006 development agreement, I don't know. I don't know what the code was back then in 2006. I think it was smaller.
Chair, it said 163 on the executive summary for how many houses they have, which was,
In this, I'm sorry, I missed that.
yeah, it's on page 57. And I think it's really close to a two-dwelling unit, which it was traditional neighborhood.
Thank you. I guess the point I was just trying to make, this is comparable and it's within that, and this is zoned as such, so that was my question. Any other questions? Commissioner Harmon?
No,
Oh, okay. Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, I had a question, and this is for staff as well, for maybe Rob McDonald. On page 50 or 86, it said Caldwell is currently in the process of adopting a traffic impact fee structure to replace traffic mitigation. Would that mean the fees are going up or down or staying the same or being reallocated? I just wanted clarification on what that exactly meant.
Thank you. That is a very good question. The city is in the process of adopting traffic impact fees, and those will replace the traffic mitigation that the city has had in place for decades. Generally, the traffic impact fees are going to be higher than what we charge currently, and there's been countless hours of analysis through a master plan throughout the entire city and a CIP, and that is all moving forward. However, that has not been adopted yet, and until that's adopted, the current standard is the traffic mitigation, which is what this development would be required to contribute. As soon as that becomes adopted, any development that comes in after that would be on the new system.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And then one other question, also on page 91. It said for the traffic impact study, it said currently they're out for TIS review process, takes about 10 weeks. Do we have any concern with that? I mean, I think this is not really near a road that needs to be reviewed, but is that a concern that we would need to adjust our process to make sure that those traffic impact studies can be reviewed by ITD in time, or is that not a concern?
That would, Commissioner Larson, that's for the letter from ITD, correct?
Yep.
So I did not update that. That was my bad on staff's part. I did have a separate conversation with Nikki later, and she did receive the traffic impact study, so she was able to review it.
Okay.
And I thought I put in the updated comment, but I did not. I will make sure that's in there before City Council.
Okay. And then just one last question for staff. Sorry, everybody. Just for the zoning, so when they zoned it in 2006, what was the reason? Because I know I approved something last week that felt like spot zoning. This kind of feels like it should have been traditional neighborhood. Do you guys know why it went from traditional neighborhood to R1? Because everything all around it looks like it should have stayed traditional neighborhood because it would have been re-annexed in 2006.
Just for clarification, the surrounding area is residential estates, not traditional neighborhood. Residential estates is our highest, or I guess you'd say lowest density zone that we have. That I believe is at max 2 units per acre.
Yes.
It was just, I'd have to go through the minutes again back for the 2006 Sienna Hills. It was just a larger product back then, and I don't have the most solid of answer on why that was changed then, or why they believed that was a good change at the time. But I'd say as history shown, with staff being here, that residential estates usually never gets developed as residential estates. Those usually are for county parcels to be that size.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We do have JD Lyle who signed up to speak.
Good evening, everyone. JD Lyle, 332 North Broadmoor Way, Nampa, Idaho. I am just the engineer for the applicant, so I don't really have anything to say. I just want to stand for any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant's engineer? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We do have no one signed up in neutral, one person signed up in opposition, Barbara Woodward, who's checked that she did not wish to speak. So with that, nobody else has signed up, so I would ask, I don't know, Becky, do you have any final statements?
I don't. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Commissioner Whitbeck? Is there a second? Second for Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, time for us to dialogue. Thoughts?
No, I know the area because I live fairly close, but it's all kind of is flowing with how that's all going right there on that corner and everything. So it seems good to me.
Just a continuation of Sienna Hills, right?
I mean, yeah, that was,
And Cirrus Point on the other side.
it's already zoned as such, and it follows our ordinances, so it seems to make sense. Other discussions? No. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion.
Commissioner Harmon.
I make a motion based on the testimony and evidence and record in this matter and upon findings of facts and conclusions of law set forth herein. Do hereby determine and move as follows: the request for a development agreement modification to remove parcel R3298101000 from DA-06-10 and preliminary plat approvals for the Tuscan Ridge subdivision is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions of approval as presented or amended.
Thank you. That was Commissioner Harmon. Is there a second?
So moved.
Commissioner Boutros. Roll call, please.
Harmon,
Yes.
Boutros,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Whitbeck,
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes. All right, that motion carries. So that takes us, closes that out and takes us to the next action item, which is to open this public hearing, which is legislative, the Event Center District Sub-Area Master Plan. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Morgan, BSOP Planning and Zoning. The application in front of you this evening is different than what you would typically see. It's not a land use application. It's a request for a recommendation on adoption of our Caldwell Event Center District Sub-Area Master Plan. This came about earlier this year because council was considering the possibility of an amphitheater on some city property near the fairgrounds and the rodeo grounds. And so as part of that, the city decided to do a study to see if the use was appropriate there or what other uses may be a better fit. And so through that process, we hired a consultant, Logan Simpson, to do this study for us. It's the same consultant that's working on our comprehensive plan. And so they are here to present the plan for you this evening. Well, they're not here, sorry. They are online to present the plan
Okay.
for you this evening.
Yeah, if you're online, go ahead. You're welcome to speak up, say your name and address for the record, and you can begin.
Yeah, we
Hi,
can't
this
hear
is
you.
Steve Sigler with Logan Simpson, and just checking to see if this is audio working?
It's working now. Thanks, Steve. Go ahead and
Okay,
say
good.
your address for the record, and you're welcome to begin.
Okay, our address is 213 Linden Street, Fort Collins, Colorado.
Thank you.
And Michaela is going to start us off. Michaela, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Evening, Commissioners. My name is Michaela Dunphy, also with Logan Simpson, and we are pleased to share with you a draft of the Caldwell Event Center District. Next slide, please. This evening, we will go through some project background, so how did we get here tonight? We'll go over what we've heard from the community so far through this process. We will discuss the master plan itself, what's in the plan, discuss some of the concepts that have been considered, and as well as the preferred and alternative concept in the draft plan, and then have the opportunity for any questions and going through some next steps on this project. Next slide, please. So this is a graphic of our process. We began back in May of 2024 with kickoff and visioning that involved data collection, better understanding the area itself, the event center district and surrounding areas. We drafted a public participation plan, conducted community interviews with members of the Event Center District Task Force, as well as other folks in the community. And that led us to an initial public workshop where we further refined a vision for this district as the start of the design process and drafting concepts and alternatives for this area. The process, as you can see, we're toward the end of it in October. We have a draft plan online, and just want to make sure folks can hear me. I'm hearing some background noise, and just want to make sure that I'm coming through clearly.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So we are here in October. The draft plan is online for public review, and we will be discussing that plan in this meeting tonight. This is in approximately a six-month process with the goal of council adoption next month. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we had 3 phases of the project with significant community input throughout. Phase 1 included one-on-one interviews, a task force meeting, and two design charrettes where we had community members participate in discussing their vision for the future of this area. Phase 2 involved a questionnaire. We had significant response from the community, over 1,200 responses. We also had a task force meeting in Phase 2. And Phase 3 involves draft plan comments. We've got the plan online right now, so folks can comment on that. And then this Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, as well as a City Council hearing next month. Next slide, please. So in our initial Phase 1 engagement, these are some key highlights of what we heard from the community, which we wanted to share just to kind of set the stage for how we developed a vision and concepts for this plan. So we heard things like elevate what we already do here. You know, we heard from the community that the fairgrounds and the rodeo are, you know, very important fixtures, and preserving and celebrating the history of Caldwell is really important to the community. We also heard interest in highlighting the unique flavor of Caldwell. So what sets Caldwell apart, and how can that be showcased in the district? We heard that folks who already work in the district, they want to ensure that visitors leave with smiles on their faces. Folks would like to see more connected and walkable places in this area. In a space that currently feels somewhat disconnected. We also heard interest in a mix of uses. So that includes restaurants, hotels, open spaces, as well as interest in more indoor and outdoor recreational and sports facilities. Lastly, activating this space year-round was another comment we heard from many folks that the idea that that this is a great asset for the community, and how can this space serve as a hub for the community around throughout the year. Next slide, please. In phase 2, we presented the community with 3 different concepts, and these concepts included a large-scale amphitheater concept, a sports facility concept, and then a vineyard winery concept. And we got significant feedback from this online questionnaire. There was broad support for all 3 concepts. However, there was significant concern as well as support for the large-scale amphitheater concept. So we really found this concept to be the most polarizing in the community, and especially in respect to how this could affect the current and existing uses, and interest in maintaining, preserving those existing uses. We also heard concerns around parking, and then there was very broad interest in more sports and recreation facilities, as well as entertainment options, and as I mentioned, maintaining the existing events and uses that are in the district today. Next slide. So the plan itself includes 5 chapters. Chapter 1 provides context on the area and what led the city to drafting this plan. Chapter 2 is exploration. So this is essentially existing conditions, what's in the district now, and what are some of the current challenges and opportunities. Chapter 3 presents a vision for the district. Chapter 4 is the plan itself. So this includes the preferred concept and alternative concepts for the district. And then Chapter 5 is implementation. So this is the chapter all about how the city will bring this plan to life. And the plan is structured around this overall vision, which has then been grouped into 3 different themes, which have strategies, and then the actions are what you'll find in the implementation section of the plan. Next slide, please. So the vision for the Event Center District is presented up here on the screen. I'll read it. The Caldwell Event Center District will be a vibrant, walkable area that enhances our community by offering a unique blend of entertainment, convention, lodging, performance, education, recreation, dining, and emergency response services, creating a unified district for these synergistic activities. The district will connect the adjacent historic district, campus areas, and commercial and residential zones, creating a unified and connected area. The district will complement other growing centers, including downtown and new mixed-use centers, fostering a stronger community. The district will serve as a new premier destination for those in the city, the Treasure Valley, and the region. That's the overall vision for the plan. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, we then grouped the strategies for the plan into 3 different themes: an activated and play-centric district, a connected, walkable, and safe district, and a cohesive and memorable district. And I'll briefly go through some of the strategies associated with each of these themes on the next few slides. Next slide, please. So strategy 1, an activated and play-centric district. So that includes supporting a wide range of recreation and entertainment options through spaces that encourage physical activity, relaxation, and the arts. Strategy 1.2, program events throughout the year to ensure consistent activity within the district. And then strategy 1.3, foster community interaction by designating environments that encourage social interaction and community events. Next slide, please. Strategy, so theme 2, a connected, walkable, and safe district, includes another set of strategies, including enhancing pedestrian and bicycle safety and accessibility to and within the district, ensuring the right mix of parking is available across the district for commercial use and events. And then 3, prioritizing investments in transit enhancements and other multimodal transportation options to and within the district. Next slide, please. And then the last theme, a cohesive and memorable district, includes the strategies of promoting a cohesive identity for the district to build visibility and to help attract visitors and businesses, and then encourage cohesive urban design that prioritizes the pedestrian experience through the district. So those are all of the strategies that really grounds the plan and will help the city then set actions that will really help bring the plan to life. So on the next slide, please. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Steve, who's going to discuss the preferred and alternative concepts in Chapter 4 of the plan.
Thanks, Michaela. So if we could just kind of briefly talk about what's happening on the site now. So generally, there are three existing ball fields, and then they're kind of bookended by Simplot Stadium for the college and also Wolf Field for college use. So the site's context already now existing is its sports complex, and then the fair and rodeo kind of dovetail with that. It's kind of a synergistic use for it. So that concept really was the one that moved forward just as what made the most sense, and how we could then provide an upgraded experience to that is what we then looked through the preferred concept. So next slide, please. So as you see, the existing conditions, the Stock Trail Road wove through in between the 3 ball fields, and it really left a disjointed kind of core facility. So it was not, there were only 3 ball fields, and they were not able to use them for tournament use or anything, as Wolf Field was not part of the discussion on use for the college and for recreational use. So the proposal here is recommending that the city then have an agreement and discussion with the college in order to use Wolf Field as the 4th field for tournament, for championship play, for that kind of create this ball field, softball, recreational use and Little League type use for tournaments and revenue generation on that end of the field. And you'll see on that side of the district as well, we're showing some items and some recommendations that are on private property. And this is just a long-term view to say, should private property interests that are happening there now, there's a very synergistic, again, use for if there's any tournaments or ball fields, the fair and the rodeo use to have supporting brew pubs, restaurants, the hotel itself could be there, or the new field house. So one of the things we really learned from just discussions on site and revenue generation is the existing field house, O'Connor Field House, it drives a huge portion of revenue generation for the entire district. And it itself is booked out 2 years in advance. It's an aging facility, not enough parking, and the size of the facility is not large enough itself either. So the thought was, where do we provide an additional service to that while it's still in use? And so one thought is to anchor that corner with it could be a recreation facility in addition to the field house. So overlying thoughts on that. The other exploration, parking, is it's over, it's utilized now to the maximum, and it's different as far as the needs. The fair and the rodeo, they prefer surface parking, they prefer soft surface as well, so paved parking is not necessarily to the best use for parking of trailers and the high, dollar and high value animals that they're having for the fair and for the rodeo, so for the rodeo in particular. But so the thought is, how do we still provide that use? So some of the fields that you're looking at, 9, and additional parking at the 8 area, where we would straighten Stock Trail Road and then have trailer pull-offs to the north. That land is underutilized right now between the railroad and Stock Trail Road. But straightening that road allows us to have that core for the ball fields as well. And in addition, for parking, the other idea we're looking at is, does it make sense now if we provide a second field house, or for the hotel, that number 11, we look at a parking garage itself, which could then be utilized for single vehicle use for hotel and for the fair, and also for the stadium, Simplot Stadium. Next slide, please. As Michaela showed some of the strategies and theming, the circulation is really key. And right now there's a divider kind of into thirds. The trail that leads from the current ball fields, it kind of goes straight, and it goes along Stock Trail Road, the bend, and it doesn't really take advantage of the experience of what you've already started in Caldwell for adjacencies to Indian Creek, that it becomes this huge amenity to have a trail, a connection, and it's also part of your city code to develop trails and stuff along Indian Creek. We're proposing doing the same along Wilson Drainage, to where we can make that an amenity and a connection between the private area development and the ball fields, and there's like a small splash pad and playground area in there. So that connection then happens along there until you hit the County Trail Ave. The fencing is there in place at Kenyon County Fair in order to control when the county has fair events there, and control access to that. So we're proposing enhancing circulation that really gives you the visual cues that here the trail goes around, and you can connect either to the north or along Stock Trail Road, or then a new language of connection happens along Blaine Street. And so we're really showing the hierarchy here, and then connecting that central core between Simplot Stadium to the hotel and then to the Canyon County Fair. Next slide, please. Some of the ideas of how we're treating those different levels of circulation. So again, we start at the top, and we address the interface that you're having along Blaine Street. Right now, the street connects with very little landscape buffer or enhancements in place between the parking on site and the street itself. So we're proposing that by introducing the parking garage, that we can take away some of the surface level parking and create this very enhanced pedestrian experience along that has buffers and landscape areas as well. The Wilson Drainage Walk proposal is to show, how that could look for its wider, its trail width, so biking and pedestrian circulation. And then the connection between the hotel area and to the fair itself, and then just everything along there. It's adjacent to Simplot Stadium as well. So creates this hierarchy of how you know where to get where you're going. Next slide, please. Some of the ideas that we're looking at, that how these would feel and look while we're still at very high level master plan. We're looking at creating, number one, the core area and tournament experience. When you have ball fields like this, this kind of core grouping of them, and tournament experience, it becomes, a day-long use, and rather than, an hour or 2 hour use. So we're introducing some shade structures, concession stands, restrooms, some shade over the bleachers facilities, and then pedestrian connection cores to the playground at the very top of the drawing, splash pad, and then the pedestrian connection to the private facility on the other side of the Wilson Drainage. Splash pad would be an amenity that we could possibly have to tie in the theming of Indian Creek, where you guys kind of have this really embracing of the water and what that means as an amenity and a play element, and then pedestrian connection across to the private, the brew pubs and restaurant kind of interface. So next slide, please. While that moved along as the preferred plan, just for overarching theme to it is that's what it's used for now, and there's no current designation for replacing those ball fields with land anywhere else in Caldwell. So the thought was, should that ever be an opportunity and you wanted to look at an additional use, a different use for this facility. The garden concept was moved forward rather than the amphitheater concept due to one other item level that we met with the developer themselves that was reached out to for providing an additional study concept on the amphitheater. And they addressed additional concerns on the ability of the site, number one, from just the parking, the circulation, the access, the facilities, the train, noise itself, that it really became that this would not provide the best circumstances for them to provide that upgraded amphitheater. And we agreed with it, and we also thought, you know, some of it did not really, it wasn't congruous with some of the adjacent uses. So the garden concept was thought, should the city have additional land that became available that they wanted to develop a ball field facility, a tournament facility that would replace the use here, we would look at this additional concept, which we revised from the vineyard concept to a garden concept, as the vineyards were a little bit, and winery a little bit more difficult to really thrive and survive in the environment here. So with this one, we looked at a really, the facility is, in number one, is kind of a brewery winery, so it would be public-private partnership, and then the adjacent uses are very informal. There's gardens, there's play areas, there's connection to a very small kind of performance area that would then kind of taper down to the river. And then that could tie to, again, you know, should private development be looked at and a preferred option down here that they could start to look at if the hotel was moved down here, that would then have some ancillary uses that would be, you know, again, restaurants, brew house, field house, or a brewery, and restaurant style areas that had outdoor and connection to the garden areas. And we would then switch the use, if the hotel was down here, we would recommend the field house up at the other corner, which is currently the vacant lot, and replace that use there. Next slide, please. This just provides an enlargement of some of the proposed uses here. And again, this is just to do due diligence should, you know, the city over time, this is meant to be a document that is thinking long-term. And should the ability to have ball fields and an upgraded facility occur for the city somewhere else, this would be an additional option to consider. Next slide, please. Back to you, Michaela.
Thanks, Steve. So in consideration of these two different concepts that Steve presented, both the preferred concept and the alternative concept, we used this set of criteria to really make decisions on the direction of the design for both. So new linkages to adjacent properties. So, you know, that connectivity being a really important element. Catalyst site development with revenue producing anchors. So that relates to, you know, both the potential for a hotel in the district, as well as other retail, restaurant, brew pub, building district visibility and excitement through marketing promotion. Also really critical to making this district work, making it a real activated space throughout the year, bringing folks in from around the region. And then demolition of vacant sites in preparation for new development, also a key element, specifically as it relates to demolition of the field house and, you know, replacement with a newer field house. Beautification and environmental strategies, so landscaping and trail connections from Indian Creek and along the Wilson drainage. So really creating a pedestrian experience, and then design guidelines as well. Thinking about some of those, you know, those elements that will create a great pedestrian environment and great experience for visitors. Next slide. And then lastly, the implementation plan, as I mentioned earlier, it includes a series of actions. And we've included actions for both the preferred concept, which is the sport concept, and the alternative concept, the garden concept. So those are two separate action plans, depending on the direction that the city goes long-term. So there's actions associated with each theme, and then in this action plan, the responsible city departments are listed, and then timeframes, so kind of short, medium, long-term timeframes are identified for the actions associated with implementation of this plan. So in the range of 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, and then 5 plus 5 to 8 years. Those are the approximate timeframes that we've included in this plan. So again, this is a long-term plan for the city with specific actions that that are feasible within the next few years. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to provide a bit more information on what we've been hearing since we released the full draft plan earlier at the end of last month. So we've received about 1,000 views on the digital plan, 39 comments, 14 commenters, and I've summarized some of the specific concerns, positive feedback that we've received, and then some other clarifications that are needed. So concerns around lack of parking and traffic in general in this area, general concerns around wanting Caldwell to be Caldwell and not to be Boise or California. And then concern with a potential hotel on 21st and adjacent to the track. So just concern around noise and whether a developer would be interested in that site. So that was a concern noted in the feedback. Also concern around the cost of events for residents. In terms of support, there were several comments on support for a larger improved field house, support for pedestrian connections across the tracks and across the district. There was also general support for the vision that's in this plan and the process that led to that vision and the preferred concept. And there was also support for maintaining rodeo and fairground events. Other comments include need for clarification on potential location for a parking garage, which on a previous slide, Steve, and we are happy to go back to any of the maps later on. We have noted a potential location. Question around what will happen to existing businesses, and so just wanted to touch on that one. The existing businesses will, stay as they are. The city has no plans to change those existing uses. Those are, private properties that are adjacent to city-owned property, but there are no plans for any changes to existing business. So this is kind of long-term plan. There's potential turnover of businesses in the future, but right now there's no plans for that. Clarification needed for multi-purpose lawn areas. So in the plan itself, we note specific locations that are that would be both kind of lawn and overflow parking. So we are happy to clarify that further in the language in the draft plan. And then another general comment that maintenance of green space will be needed, which again that is addressed in the action plan as well. The need for a maintenance strategy, a district-wide maintenance strategy. So that's just a summary of what we've heard from the public to date. And next slide, please. Believe that's yes. This is our last slide here. In terms of next steps, we are anticipating a city council hearing on November 4th, and online public feedback continues through the end of October, and we are happy to take any questions that you all have. And thank you again for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Boutros?
Yeah, we kind of need to have a conversation. So I went through the entire plan, and it's actually beautiful. It's a very nice thing when it's in place. However, reality is that as funding becomes an issue, because we're in the real world, I think there needs to be an incremental development plan that's part of this, where each phase of the incremental plan stands on its own. An example is they're talking about rerouting Stock Trail Road, and that either gets done all at once, or you end up with an area that's perennially under construction. So I really like what has been done. We need to link that to funding sources in our risk management sense, that how confident are we that costs are going to be met, and can we break that confidence down into phases of development so that it doesn't look haphazard, or that it doesn't end up stopping because of opposition to one phase or another. That would be a disaster.
That a question or?
That's why I said this has to be a conversation, because we're looking at making a recommendation for this draft work to press on, if that's true. And I would say, yeah, I think you should proceed with this, but we need to begin linking this to funding basis and to incremental development. So that's a recommendation.
Thank you. Yeah, and I see this more, this is that first step of that process, but I see Deputy Director Bisa may have something to say.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think that those are great comments, and I think that those are definitely things that we could integrate into the implementation section and the list of draft actions that we should take, considering what cost estimates would be. But I don't think that we're at the point yet where we're actually budgeting for this project. It's sort of like a more detailed, comprehensive plan. We're going through our comp plan at the same time, and so this is a more in-depth look of what the city envisions that area looking like, because it actually gets into some light design concepts. But you're correct, we're not quite at the stage where we're talking about budgeting to put this on the plan for next year. But I think that those are great comments that we could incorporate into the implementation section.
So it's not a specific budgeting issue. It's rather understanding the general costs that are associated with doing the different steps that are in it. If somebody were to propose some very expensive step, and they did an analysis on the risk of getting that kind of funding, and they realized it was very likely not to be approved, then how does your overall concept, your overall plan get changed in order to consider that and maybe plan around that? You don't want to plan for something that's not feasible. So at this phase of it, I think you want to start breaking this down so that you can eat the elephant one bite at a time, and have something that is credible and that could possibly be funded over time.
Thank you. I did have a question. Theme 1, Strategy 1, describes a variety of things, recreation, let's see, pull it back up. Oops, 1, 3, 4. But the last, I think it's the last word of that section, refers to art being part of that process. And I guess my curiosity in the visioning of this, and this is also in recognition of the late exhibit from Rebecca Hansen talking about more need for art in our community. I guess my question would be, is there a part of this plan that points to kind of that art outside of just the words within that strategy?
I think that's a great comment. Actually, in the implementation section, one of the actions is that they recommend that we put together a public Arts Commission, and then have them consider, not just for this project, that would be one recommendation in general that the city has considered, but then through that commission, have them look at how we could incorporate public art into the design. And that's a great comment.
Yeah, and I guess my one curiosity for whenever that develops a field house, if there's a possibility to have that to be a multi-purpose, or it could be maybe community theater in between other kind of art-oriented experiences. Other questions or comments at this point? I do have one person signed up to speak in favor, but questions are for the developer staff.
Yeah, Chair, a couple questions.
Commissioner Larson.
For the applicant, did you guys talk to Canyon County Commissioners or Diane Sinner about what their vision is for Canyon County so that the Caldwell and Canyon County aren't fighting each other for the vision of Caldwell that we're both living in?
I know that you were asking the consultant, but just to clarify, the applicant would be us, the city. And they were part of the task force. So we had representatives on the task force. We had Diana Sinner. We had representatives from, I think, the rodeo, some local businesses. I think that they're listed on the front page of the plan. Let me scroll back up to the front page of the plan. And it's on page,
It's
I think page
100 of the
100.
packet.
Yes, so we had representatives from council, Caldwell Night Rodeo, the city, Caldwell Housing Authority, Economic Development, Chamber of Commerce, Urban Renewal, the college, DMB, and then the county. That were specifically on the task force that we had multiple meetings with.
Cool.
Other people from the county were also brought into the discussion at different times.
Thank you. And then the last question I had is, how often are those baseball, softball fields actually used? Like yearly, do we know what percentage it is? Because my question is, should we replace 3 with 2, or should we still replace 3 with 3? Like, are they used enough to where it actually makes sense to enhance that portion instead of change a small percentage of it?
So one of the, not the only, but one of the deciding factors on, how to choose which of the 3 concepts to move forward with was feedback from the Parks and Rec department. They said that there's very few fields that they can use for adult softball or baseball tournaments, that they're severely lacking. They don't have a lot of fields that they can use, that we don't have tournament level fields, and that removing these 3 fields would be detrimental to their programming, and that their actual preference would be that we provide 4 fields, because they said to have really good tournament play, you need 4 fields. But this is a dramatic improvement, and then with the recommendation from the consultant to work with the college to see if we could use that 4th field on occasion for tournaments, this seemed like, the best option without, being detrimental to our Parks and Rec programming. And also for revenue, because the quality of fields we have right now for tournaments are lacking. And so having improved fields would open us up to more tournament options and more revenue.
So I guess, trying to not ask a rhetorical question here, if you have one of less fields and have businesses in place of that whole field will make less revenue than if we had all of them be softball, baseball field? Because I don't believe that would be true. I don't think that if one whole field portion, and this is just an opinion, one whole field were to be turned into businesses of some kind would make more revenue than probably all the softball fields combined. Just a question. I don't know how you would put analytics to it, but I think businesses that's open year-round will make more revenue than any. I don't know how aggressive our softball, baseball tournaments are here, but I'm guessing they're not aggressive enough to make more than any standard business in downtown Caldwell or in this area.
Sure. But are you suggesting that the city run a business? Or you're considering if we lease property to a business, that their leases that they would pay annually to have that winery or brewery on site would be less?
My thought would be that it's 3 fields, right? Is that instead of having 3, have we considered having 2 and using that portion of an area for something that would be more year-round purpose? Because I'm pretty sure we don't have softball tournaments year-round. So, although one of the questions was maintenance. So if a portion of it can be used year-round for other purposes, like restaurants or hotels or whatever, to me seems like a question that I feel like should be asked.
I don't have,
So
Yep,
I'll
go
just
ahead,
give you a
Stephen.
little bit, sorry, is it all right if I kind of give you a
Please.
little bit of background information?
Sure.
go ahead.
So we had hotels for particular, they were very, access is number one, and so they're a couple hotel development resources looked at the site, and number one preferred site was that vacant lot along 21st Avenue, and the second area was that area along Linden, but getting internally into a site like that was definitely not along the lines of where they had the most, their analytics tell them that would be a successful site for them. So they did look at overall, and those were the two recommendations on where a successful hotel site would be. And then again, it is always an option for the public and private partnership to have the city land to be leased, and it's something else proposed there, which is part of what we looked at for that garden concept. So that would be the area that we looked at for the brewery, the winery, and then that whole experiential place for the gardens that would take place there. So, we did look at that, and that was the proposal. The other thought in when you start to look at ball fields and what it means to have a tournament and ability, and generally it's 4 fields all in the same core area. So that's why, even the recommendation was to start that discussion with the college for Wool Field to be incorporated as possibly, the championship field and that kind of stuff. So right now, the 3 fields are maximized in use. The other use, one of them is overflow parking for what happens for the fair and rodeo. So when you go down to 2 fields, you kind of lose that ability to do tournaments, and you also lose the current programming need. So the balance is looking at this, why we have that preferred option, but didn't just end there, and still keep that alternative for you to keep in your back pocket should the ball fields be able to be replaced somewhere else.
Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Right, seeing no other questions right now. Kim, would you like to come up and speak? Name and address into the record, please.
So I am Kim Hasnerl, address is 2808 East Maryland Avenue in Nampa. And while I live in Nampa, I'm very vested in Caldwell. I'm executive director for Caldwell Fine Arts. And when this whole process started, it was much more talk about amphitheater arts. We currently do about 10 shows a year where we bring in professional performing artists. We do them at Jewett Auditorium. We're very limited there. We're very limited on what we can bring in just from the way the facility is built. Also, the college is growing. The college is, their focus is their students. It's not outside organizations like ours. Where we are associated with the college, we're a completely separate 501c3. We can do our shows wherever we want. I would love to see a performing arts facility in Caldwell. And to what Alex said, I felt like the vision stated, it mentioned the arts, it mentioned performance. I didn't see any of that really built into the plans unless you count the performances in the rodeo arena or the magicians at the fair. There really wasn't much arts at all that I could see built into it. I don't disagree with the developers out of California that this maybe isn't the right place to have that. I think maybe Caldwell needs an arts and culture district. They need an additional district that is not part of this event district, because it really is sports focused, sports, rodeo, fair, and the arts are used to losing out to the sports. But we would love to have our own area, and I do, to what you said, we really do need a public arts commission or something to encourage more more public art. We'd love to be part of that. I think that actually provides, you know, it would help multiple issues. I look at how when I go on vacation, I'm okay walking. I don't complain about walking. Part of that is because a lot of times there's great things to walk by and look at. And if you're looking at beautiful art and you're, you know, doing that, walking isn't quite as much of a chore. So anyways, I'm still in favor of the project. I just would still like to see the arts, some galleries, some performing arts spaces, flexible spaces that could be used for multiple things. I would still like that to be part of the plan going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments? All right.
I would like to kind of follow up just briefly with that one that, you know, agreed, we're showing still pretty high level as to what we are here for this initial draft. And the next round, we're really looking at, we've got kind of that events and performance space of what, it's not an amphitheater, but it is a, you know, small kind of informal performance space. And so we can highlight that in some of the 3D, you know, graphics and renderings to give a little bit better idea of what that connection is. But yeah, I think, you know, we can help to show a little bit more on what we're really considering for the arts overlays and connection for it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. All right, that takes us back to Morgan. Do you want to finish this off? No? All right, any final comments from commissioners? I'd entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
Second.
That was Commissioner Larson, second by Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so now it's time for us to deliberate and make a motion. Any comments?
Just to understand, we are strictly making a recommendation
Correct.
to adopt this plan in a very conceptual basis, right?
Correct.
So there aren't any specific, excuse me, not any specific plans being adopted at this point.
Correct.
Just getting the event center district, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It certainly seems reasonable that the study should continue. And as the comment that I made was that we need to start linking it to sources of funding and showing incremental growth so that it looks, not just looks, it is more feasible.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. I think this is certainly a first step to get us to that part of the conversation.
I agree. I went straight down trying to find what they have about funding too. So I'm on the same page with you on that, but I think we're just trying to get this first initial step, right? Is that?
Yeah. To chime in with them, the possible concern is because we all were here for the parking meter shenanigans, and so we don't want something similar to happen of a larger magnitude. At least that's my opinion of our concern.
Sure. And I think that, you know, the plan is still online. People are still able to comment. You're still able to comment, right? You can provide comments tonight and we can go back and, you know, try to make sure we incorporate those references before this goes to council. But if you want to think about it and then, you know, tomorrow or the next day, go onto the website and write very specific comments, you know, we're still collecting comments for a few more weeks.
Thank you.
My main concern would be that it's not too narrow of an idea to where it's something that's specific that we use as talking about the baseball tournaments is a very small window in the whole year. So what in the plan is incorporated to make it a year-round facility?
Yeah, and I would just encourage continued conversation, examples of the art spaces, because that for me is something that's important, you know, both in the late exhibit and Kim who spoke.
If I could just make a comment
Please.
about ball fields in general. Where I came from before, they had the regular baseball season in the spring. Then they had, after the kids were out of school, there were summer leagues, and then there was fall ball because it was possible to play. So they were using the ball fields at least 9 months out of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I agree with that.
they're utilized and they can be utilized in a variety of ways. I think you maximize that, and
And if you
Yep.
get those big I'm sorry,
No.
Alex, I didn't mean to cut you.
No,
off.
you're good. Go ahead.
So, if you get those big tournaments, it does bring in that extra amount of people into the area, because they bring in people from all over. And then that supports the businesses around, and so it's not just what they create in.
The baseball,
In
yeah.
the baseball itself, you
Yeah.
know, it's hotels, the
whole
restaurants,
thing.
everything.
All right, other discussion?
No, I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Larson?
Based upon the testimony and evidence and record in this matter, and upon the findings of facts and conclusions of law set forth herein, do hereby determine and move as follows: the request for adoption of the Event Center District Sub-Area Master Plan is recommended for approval as presented / amended.
Thank you. That's a motion for Commissioner Larson,
Second.
second for Commissioner Whitbeck. Roll call, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Whitbeck,
Yes.
Boutros,
Yes.
Harmon,
Yes.
Zamora.
Yes. All right, with that, we'll close that hearing and move to adjournment. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Larson,
Second.
second for Commissioner Harmon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.